our world. Serie, our world.
Hey, you alright?
Oh man, all good.
Good stuff. We've got a lot to get through today, so I think I'll just chuck straight into it unless there's anything you want to say from the beginning.
No, nothing burning right now.
Alright, cool. So week 22 results, we had Torino beating Cagliari 2-0, Atalanta beating Como 2-1, Napoli beating Juve 2-1, Empoli Bologna 1-1, Milan in a crazy game beating Parma 3-2, Roma beating Udinese 2-1, Inter beating Lecce 4-0, Fiorentina beating Lazio 2-1, Venezia Verona 1-1, and then Genoa beating Monza 2-0. On the prediction front, I think after what you said last week about the AI and the embarrassments and stuff like that, I will let you know, and I don't think you're going to be too happy. You got 50% of the results right with one score. I got 70% of the results with two score. And the AI decided of all weeks to get 80% plus four scores.
Wow. Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but is this the highest score ever had during this game? Or for anyone, 80%?
I'm trying to think back, but I think we may have got it, or if not, I know 70s was definitely we've got, and obviously I've got it this week. But I can't remember if we did get 80 or not, but 80% plus four scores, that's obviously 6 scores away from perfection. So, do you know what I mean? That would have been crazy, but yeah, of all weeks to do it, the AIs beat us both very...
Wow. We've been done, and the machines are winning.
The tide turns here, it looks like. Hopefully,
I think if this continues for a long period, I think we should just give up and let the AI take over the whole show.
Yeah, well, might as well, innit? But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, today's a blip on our part, and we'll see what happens next week. I'll then go into the European results that we had in the week. Europa-wise, Lazio were already through anyway. I didn't see if they put out a weaker team, but I'm guessing they did. They lost 1-0 to Braga, but they still finished top of the whole league. And then Roma went and beat Frankfurt 2-0, which put them in 15th place for a playoff. And then in the Champions League, we had Bologna, who had not much to play for, really thin hopes of doing anything, drew 1-1 with Sporting. Inter beat Monaco 3-0. Barca and Atalanta drew 2-2. Benfica beat Juve 2-0. And then Dynamo beat Milan 2-1. And I mean, I'm proper disappointed considering how many teams could have been in the top 8 and didn't end up being. Inter finished 4th, and so automatically through as a top 8. In the playoffs, we had Atalanta, who finished 9th, Milan, who finished 13th, and Juve, who finished 20th. And then Bologna went out at 28th spot. Crazy. Those games, I'm really, really annoyed with Juve and Milan. Really bad. Bologna, as I said, they didn't really have too much to play for, and they did quite well. And I saw look at the highlights, they were actually unlucky that they didn't win that game. So they ended the Champions League quite well. Inter were just standard. Atalanta is still really good to watch. And I mean, their results, even the draws and losses that they've had this season, have been quite unlucky as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to speak about any of them before I then go into the complications of the draws.
Well, I feel that, complications of draws, lots of them.
I'll explain that as much as I can.
Still getting my head around it all, but I think you mentioned that the Serie A teams could face each other very quickly.
Yeah, okay.
I don't like the idea of that.
We'll go into that. Okay, so I'll start with, because both draws were made today, not too long ago. So we waited so we could give that up to date. I'll start with the Europa League. So the Europa League, both draws. I'll explain the draws first of all. Both draws with very similar in the sense of top 8 are straight into round 16, and then the other 16 are then put into a knockout phase. That knockout phase was then drawn today, and so what they'd actually done in UEFA is they'd paired every team throughout the league, so 1 and 2, 3 and 4, etc., all the way down the league. Now, I still think there could have been an easier way, in the sense I think they should have already set out even in the 16 that went into the knockout, that the top one played the bottom one, the next one down played the next one up, and then so on, and then they would have had that all sorted, and they could have also had already the next round 16 sorted if they really wanted, by saying that first would have played this, the next one would have played the next one, etc., etc. But they didn't want to do that. They want to do a draw, and so they've drawn the knockout phase, and then once the knockout phase has been done, they will then draw the round 16, which is the ones who've already gone through, who's going to be playing the ones that have qualified through the playoff. So I know that still sounds a bit complicated, but bear with me. So in the Europa League, Lazio are automatically into round 16, so they don't know who they're going to play yet. They could either end up playing, and forgive me when I can't say some of these names of these teams, Ferencváros or Victoria Pilsen, or if they're in the other side of the draw, they're going to be playing Porto or Roma, which means there is a very high possibility, or 50-50 near enough, that they could be playing Porto or Roma, which Roma need to get through Porto of course first, but if Roma do go through, there is a chance that there's a 50-50 chance of a Rome derby, Rome-Lazio. In the knockout phase, which is going to be played on the 12th or 13th of February, as I've just said, Porto are playing Roma. So Roma's way through potential opponents up to the final in the next round is either going to be Atletico Madrid or Lazio, depending who gets drawn. In the quarterfinals, it would be out of Fenerbahce, Anderlecht, Rangers or Olympiacos. And then semi-finals, if they get that far, PAOK, FCSB, Michelin, Real Sociedad, Lyon, Frankfurt, Tottenham or Man U. Now, because the round 16 hasn't been drawn, obviously that's why there's so many possibilities of those teams that they could end up playing later on in the competition. But obviously once that round has been drawn after the playoffs, that will halve the teams of those possibilities that they could get there. So I can't really update that until obviously that draw happens, but I've put on every potential opponent. So Roma's got fairly difficult, I'd say, knockout and then round 16 to come, and then from then on it might get not easier, because I don't see any teams that have obviously further in the competition as easy, but in the sense of who they're playing first to then is possibly an easier thing, but they need to get there first. Then in the Champions League, same thing. As like Lazio, Inter have automatically gone into round 16. So they're either going to play in round 16 Juventus PSV or Feyenoord Milan. Now, if all the Italian teams go through, that means we're either going to be looking at a Derby d'Italia or a Milan derby. Do you know what I mean? Either way, it's not great to see that in both competitions we could have derbies, a possibility, potentially, but also that also means a team going out. No choice, unfortunately, but it seems to happen all the time. In the knockout phase, we've got Atalanta, who are going to be playing Club Brugge in the knockout. In the round 16, they would be playing, depending who's drawn, Lille or Aston Villa. In the quarterfinals, they could play Brest, PSG, Liverpool or Barca. And then in the semi-finals, Man City, Real, Juve, PSV, Atletico Madrid, Leverkusen, Arsenal or Inter. So they're on that side, which is very difficult. Juve are basically on the same side, so they have a similar type of things where they're playing PSV in the playoffs. Their potential opponent is either Arsenal or Inter, Then in the quarterfinals, it could be Man City, Real, Atletico, or Leverkusen. And then semi-finals, Brest, PSG, Club Brugge, Atalanta, Liverpool, Barca, Lille, or Aston Villa. And then finally, we have Milan, who are going to be playing another Dutch side in Feyenoord in the playoff. Their potential opponents are also either Arsenal or Inter in round 16. And then in the quarterfinals, they could play Celtic, Bayern, Leverkusen, or Atletico Madrid. And then semi-finals, Monaco, Benfica, Sporting, Dortmund, Barcelona, Liverpool, Aston Villa, or Lille. So, from a perspective of the Italian teams, depending if Inter join the Milan side or not, Milan, I would say, have got the, again, I don't like using the word easier, but more of an opportunity to go through, should we say. But being the way they've played this season, I don't know. It's very hard to tell. So, might sound complicated, but it's not as complicated as it's sounding. It's just, I think UEFA have overcomplicated it by pairing the teams instead of just saying that you would place here, you just be in this slot and so on. Anything you want to talk about? Any of those draws?
As you say, complicated. I think it is. That whole pairing business is, a bit mad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think it's better than the old format?
This is another thing. Like, they keep saying about the old format, and also in the sense of records. You've got to think, like, I was thinking about this actually when the Super Coppa was being played, because I know I've gone off a bit of what I'm about to say about that, but just to say, for example, I think, if I remember off the top of my head, that De Vrij has played, for example, like 8 games in the last couple of seasons, because Inter have done this, because they've expanded the Super Coppa to obviously have the semi-finals too, which means, and Inter have been winning as well, so the Inter players have played two games one season, 2 next, and do you know how? So that's double what they would normally play before every year. So they're all catching up with Buffon, who played 8 or 9, I think it was. But he played finals because that's all he was given, and that was spread over every season. So that's 8-9 seasons. You understand what I mean? While these other players now, in a couple of seasons, have halved it, and that's the same thing that I'm seeing for these competitions in Europe. For example, the Champions League now. They've been saying how teams like Milan, for example, have had their best run in Champions League, blah, 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 and all this. But the thing is, they've expanded it. So expanding that means also records will be broken, because they've now got more opportunity to break those records. So these records should not exist, I don't think. I think in the sense of, now they've done this format, it should have been renamed something else or put a different way, and these records start from this season. But it's not going to be like that. So you're now going to get players who, appearances and goals and assists and all that stuff, they're going to do it in half the time that they would have if they were playing 10, 20 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So I already see that's a bit of a weird thing to have comparisons in terms of records. But in terms of the competition, I can see why they've done it and what they've done. But I mean, I just think, even though you can have big teams playing big teams all the time and all that, it still feels diluted to me, because before, if you remember when it was originally the competition, it was only who won the league. It was a Champions League because it was champions of each country. Do you know what I mean? Now you're looking at 4 or 5 teams for each country. It's not the champions. I mean, I can't bother to do it, but I'd like to know the stat of which champions of their league the season before actually won the Champions League the next season. Or are teams who are 2nd, 3rd, 4th winning the Champions League?
I think it's, from what I've seen, yes. So generally it's quite, I think it's quite tough for the team that won the league to then win the Champions League the next year.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
But while you talk about that format, I have one thing to ask you in addition, right? So you say you can see why they've done it.
Yeah,
I think I know why. It's. I think everyone knows it's just to
money.
appease those that wanted the Super League,
Yeah,
right? I'm going to be a bit more straight with what I'm saying. So, Man City, for example, you've seen where they finished.
Mm.
If this was the old format, would they have qualified with that number of points and those sorts
exactly.
of performances? You tell me.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. I don't agree with that in that sense. That is what these competitions have been done to replace, in the sense of to fight against the Super League happening. But it's as I was saying, it has diluted it a lot. And as we were saying at the beginning of the season, yes, it's great, you can see this and whatever, but you've got to remember, if this happens every season, you're not going to get excited as much before. Do you know what I mean? Before, if you had a big game, the big games coming through, that was like, oh yes, great. But now it's as I say, it just feels diluted to me. And what I also don't like about it, even though they keep trying to rave on about it and saying how great it is, even through the draws, they were getting players to say how great this competition is and that. But I don't even know what to say. It's just, I can't even remember what I was going to say now. I've actually completely
for me,
gone back.
I'm just thinking just on what you said there about the excitement. For me,
Yeah,
and you tell me, right, in this league phase that was played,
yeah,
were you as excited as you were with the Champions League group stages? From my side, I can tell you I was not.
no,
I wasn't, because it's a long, drawn-out process.
yeah,
It wasn't very clear, what happens after. I guess we were all learning. It was the first one.
yeah,
But for me, there's just too many teams.
yeah.
And yeah, that league format, it's for us fans, it's not for us. It's to appease those that wanted the Super League. It fits perfectly.
Yeah, and I think it also,
So that's what it is.
and I think it also suits the ones who follow football blindly rather than looking deeper into it. Because I've just remembered the point I was going to make. It's meaning more games, which we know affects the league, because in the league they then decide, oh, we've got a game next week in the Champions League, we're going to put out more of a reserve second squad in the league, and that's where it dilutes the leagues as well.
We saw that, didn't we?
Yeah,
especially at the beginning of the season.
I think
it was very bad.
I think later on, because they know kind of where they're at, the points they need and stuff like that, it made it less likely of them doing that. But they still did it, but not maybe to the whole degree of the whole team being changed, but a few players, etc. So that's what I was going to say. I just think great. It looks great at the moment. As I say, if you just follow football in general and blindly and don't look at it too deeply, yeah, you must be thinking, oh, great, game after game, etc. for neutrals. But yeah, I can see why they've done it, and I know why they've done it. As I say, as you said as well. But it comes down to it. It's all down to money. In the end of the day, they really couldn't care less how the football goes. It's about the money, and unfortunately, that's how a lot of the players think about football nowadays, compared to before, where they had to have another job, or something on the side, or have to learn something to have outside of football. Now it's you're 17 years old and you're on 200k a week. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know, but.
They were saying, yeah, a perfect example we just came across today. Jordan Henderson, right? I know this is not a Serie A player, and we shouldn't really give much airtime to it, but an example is that, Ajax, they basically gave him a chance and to play in Europe again and even get in the spotlight for England. And they gave him captaincy and everything. And his first chance he gets is ditch the carbon project and go to a country where there's no tax.
Yeah.
So
I know. It's crazy, but right. Yeah, I mean, anything else on the European games? Otherwise, I'll go straight on to the next section.
Yeah. Just was going to say, all that aside, how do you think that the Italian teams did overall. Because for me,
I'm disappointed.
I mean, Inter did well. I have to say, Inter did well. Like that was it's good to see, and it's good to see they're basically joint third, is it? And then you've got, but then on the other
fourth,
side of it,
but technically they're fourth I know what you mean though.
Yeah, so Atalanta, every time they're just close and still haven't got there yet.
No.
They did face some tough teams also. Milan, I think for me were really disappointing.
Yeah.
Juve the most, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, I'd say Bologna the most overall in the sense of because they went out, but considering the team they are,
have the tools. Yeah.
No, that's what I was about to say. Considering the team they are and who they lost over the summer and everything else, and they had a bad start and they started to pick up, so they were doing well. In the end, they were starting to pick up, but it's obviously too late then. But I wouldn't say they're the worst, but they're worst in terms of the table. Because obviously they went out. But I still think Atalanta, Milan and Juve could have all done better. Definitely could have done better. I mean, Milan, all they had to do was win. All they had to do was win at Dynamo. And that was it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And they messed that up hard. Messed it up hard.
For me, that was terrible. Terrible.
And then,
it was in their hands.
Yeah.
It really was. It's not like it was a Milan-Barcelona game. It wasn't like that.
It's probably a good job they didn't play Barcelona because they would have got ripped to shreds. Considering, innit? I mean, I don't trust them this season. They're still a mess, and we'll talk maybe a bit more now or next week about that. Considering things.
Yeah, but I guess at least they're through. At least Juve are through, Inter are through. There's hope for the Serie team to do something in this first new format Champions League. So, I think there's always a chance.
It's still, I mean, there's a chance, but whether they do anything about that or not is a different matter. In the moment, I don't trust their team to be doing much, but if they get the players they're saying they're getting, it will give a boost. But I still think even if they get those players, they're still far off where they should be, or as I say should be in the sense of their historical reputation, because they've not really done well. So I mean that's my take on those teams. Next week we've got half of the Coppa Italia to play. So on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, Atalanta are playing Bologna, and then on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, Milan are playing Roma. The other half of the draw, I don't know why, from what I've seen, the other half is going to be at the end of February, around February 25th. They haven't set times yet, but I would guess February 25th and February 26th at 8 p.m. Inter playing Lazio and Juve playing Empoli, unless they change that. But they've not set a time at the moment. I'm just going on what these games next week are going to be playing. So it's going to be interesting to see who goes through on the Coppa Italia. And then after that, we've got week 23 fixtures coming up. We've put in our predictions, which as always will be in the description of the video. On tonight, I was going to say on Friday, but it is Friday. Tonight, Parma are playing Lecce. Udinese versus Venezia tomorrow to kick off, with Monza Verona, and then Atalanta Torino, and then Bologna Como. Then on Sunday, we've got a crazy Sunday coming up. We've got Juve Empoli to start with, Fiorentina Genoa, then we've got the Milan derby, and then we've got Roma Napoli, which derby of the South as well. And then on the Monday is rounded up by Cagliari v Lazio. Any comments on this? Hello?
Got some big games, so for me, that Napoli, that Roma Napoli game, it's going to be massive.
Yeah,
it really is. I think there's going to be, personally, I think it could be a draw with a good few goals scored. Derby, of course, massive again. I think it's not based on the fact that Milan have won the only derbies this season, both played. I think this third one, it's still open. It's still open.
I mean, as you know my point of view on this, I still think they're not going to do 3 in a row. I can't see them doing 3 in a row, especially the mess they're in at the moment. I think I'd be surprised if they even get a goal, to be honest. I think Inter, especially in the form they're on, and Martinez now has hit his form again. I wouldn't. It's either going to be, well, I'll give my prediction here so you can see it live. I've put Inter to win 2-0, but I would not be shocked if it ended up being 4 or 5-0. That's how bad I'm seeing Milan at the moment.
You really think Milan are just done on this one? For me, I just think with Conte S.A.W, it just seems that the results are just going here and there. But
you say that.
I feel there's fire. I feel there's some fire and urgency and stuff like that, which wasn't seen before.
Yeah, but you might. But I don't see it as much. I mean, yes, they've had a lot of comebacks, but they keep going behind, which is one thing. But the other thing is, yes, they had a boost when he came in, and they did what they did. But the performances have not been that great, aside from probably the second half against Inter, where they scored 3 goals in the Supercoppa. There's not been much of a game where you can watch Milan and think for 90 minutes they have dominated. There is no games like that, none. Their performances have been terrible. They've had, like before, and like they've had in recent seasons, they have short bursts, that it seems, of spells where they might score a few goals in 5-10 minutes. But then the rest of the game they've done nothing, or they're struggling to do anything, and it makes no sense. And now, especially with what looks like Morata going to Galatasaray, Kamada's going to Monza, it looks like at the moment, not official right as we're speaking, but they're near enough done deals from what they're saying. You're right, sorry, I think we got cut off there. I'll carry on. So as I was saying, like, the thing is with Milan, especially at the moment with Kamada and Morata potentially going, I know they're trying to get Jimenez, I know they're trying to get Luca and Ricci for midfield, but whether they get them or not is a different matter. Jimenez apparently is basically done, but will he be playing on Sunday? That's another. I mean, I think they'd have no choice really if he is there before, and it becomes official. But I think if that is the case, that's going to be their only hope of getting something from a person who is going to have so much adrenaline in him to want to do good on his debut, especially if it's a Milan derby and Milan are technically the home team. I think that would be their only ray of hope. But otherwise, I can't see it because there seems to be so many internal problems and behind the scenes. Because it's from what I'm gathering from what's being put out there and what's been shown even on after the last game, like it seems like the players don't get on with him. They seem to think he's being too hard on them, which just shows you how pathetic footballers have got. They don't even want to do any hard work anymore. And they don't want to be told if they're not doing well. Like, it's a mess because it still feels like they're fighting the manager, and whether they're going to turn up now or not is a different matter. They don't seem to care whether the fans have turned up or anything. I just don't like that attitude of where if they're not getting on with the manager, they think that they decide they're not even going to try too much. That's just disgusting to me. Do you know what I mean? So
it is. I think we've seen it in lots of teams, haven't we?
Yeah, over the years, it's crazy.
Very bad, yeah. And I think some of the managers we've grown up liking, for them it's a shocker, isn't it? Because for them, they're just like, what the hell's going on? I mean, Mourinho's not the easiest manager to get along with, whoever you are. Yeah. But, I mean, his formula worked. And then when this sort of thing started happening, you just see the reaction is these guys, they're not used to it. We're not used to it as fans of these teams as well. For us, it's
Yeah.
a big letdown, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Whoever you support.
It is, and I say it's just in the end of the day, who is the football for? Because how I seen it, and that's why I say like I hate football as much as I love it, but the part that I love is just the game. I don't like anything around it. I don't like how the players are. I don't like how it was all the advertising that goes with it. Like it's well over the top, especially when they then try to bring in world issues into it. Like football's supposed to cure everything, but they only do it they're only doing it UEFA and FIFA, as we know, or you should know. They do these things to try and show they care when they don't. They care about the money that comes from it, and that's what it is. And I hate it. And then when you've got players who then think, oh, my manager's not, I don't like him because he's not picking me, or he's working us too hard, or he's making us come in for 5 hours instead of the 2 that we do in the morning, or whatever it is. You've got to think the mentality of these players are more about their likes and follows rather than what their football does. And
that's a good point, because speaking about Milan as we were, I don't know if you've seen the news today and maybe a bit yesterday about Conte S.A.W, but apparently he's struggling. He admitted this was his own interview where he said that he's finding it hard to navigate the setup of Milan.
Yeah.
And, with that loss yesterday, of course, as we know in Serie, there's already questions. Is he on his way out? Can Allegri come in? Should we get Xavi? This kind of stuff I'm seeing, right?
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, right, that and a lot of the players as well are complaining about how things are at Milan, the training ground. They're complaining about his methods. He's quite he's a character, isn't he? But like all of this just feeds into that, right? That the players can say no, training's too hard, or I don't like this guy's approach, but then before you know it, the manager's gone.
Yeah, but then this is where I see that the fans need to get their heads screwed on, in the sense of, are you going to be happy if you, for example, say yourself went paid for a ticket to go to Italy to watch a game, whatever team it is, and you've gone all the way there, you've paid to go a hotel, you've paid to eat places, you've paid to travel, gone to the game, and then they decide they can't be bothered to play. And they get screwed over, and they're just walking around like nothing matters. And then you've still got to, and then you're getting the flight home and everything, and however long you've stayed there, how much money have you spent to watch a bunch of idiots decide they're not going to play today because they don't like their manager? That's terrible. They don't think about the fans as much as they say they do. All they care about the fans is giving them more money and more exposure. That's it. Nothing else. Because if they did care, I mean, personally for me, this is just the type of person I am. If it was me in their position, I would just work harder and harder for the people, because I know as a supporter how it is to be, and that's how they should be acting all the time, but they don't, and that's a problem for me.
Yeah, and I don't think it's ever going to really go back to those days.
No, it's not, and that's the issue, and that's why I think you might have, I can't remember if it was the beginning of the season or whenever, I like I was saying, if football could be reset and everyone's set on a set budget, price, whatever, whether it was 20 grand a month or whatever, they have a basic rate, everyone the same, everyone at the top level the same, but their bonuses reflected on what they earn in the sense of tackles, goals, whatever, and then team bonuses and things like that, and that's the way they get their money. If they did it like that from the start, or reset it like that, then you would see who would be working and who will be trying and who the real footballers are. And it's the same if they do that, you would never see stuff like we're not working for the manager, because they would be working for themselves to earn that money to get that performance. Do you know what I mean? Never going to happen. I know it's never going to happen, but that's how it should be, and that's how it should really be in various sports and various top level things, because these people are people that generations, especially the kids, look up to and learn from. Because imagine you go to work and you don't like your manager, which is, I'd guess, probably 90% of people out there. Yeah. If you then turn around and said, can't bother to do anything today, and they're like, no, you've got to do this, and you're like, okay, I'll do it really slowly, you won't even last a day. You'll be out. You'll be gone. And no compensation of millions for that. No, gone. No job. Struggling. Then they'll tell the next job, if someone goes for a reference, he was this, he was that, blah, blah, blah. You won't get that job. And then you end up in debts and whatever else, and then no home, no this, no that. That's real life. Football's not real life. Football has its own rules. They can go and do stuff illegally. Plenty of times they have, and they're let off. They then go back into the teams, and then within a few weeks they might score a goal or two, and everyone's forgot about it, and they're heroes again. And I just find that terrible, really do. But I think we've sort of veered quite off everything at the moment. But
yeah, but no, it's interesting to go into, because I guess we were saying about Milan, right, and how they underperformed, especially yesterday. But in general, a bit of a mess over there, and just trying to figure out why, right? So,
well, it is.
Yeah.
It's just that is it, and that is. I know it's a long reason to give, but that is why I can't see Milan doing something this weekend. They might now go on and win 3-0 after all that, but that would not change anything for me, because I haven't seen that consistency in Milan in a long time. I haven't seen a Milan team. I can't remember the last time I've seen a Milan team dominate completely 90 minutes, and not just for one game, but for quite a few in a row.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, be comfortable. Don't not even have to be dominated. Comfortable, should we say? I mean, they've got away with quite a few results, and as I've said over the last few seasons, their results have masked their performances hard. They finished higher than they finished. They were lucky when they won the league. They were lucky. That was down to Inter mistake that they won that league.
yeah. I think it's a shame, because we all know what Milan used to be like. Like, they were creme de la creme, like the top team of not just Italy, but in the world at one point, right?
Yeah.
And to see this, it is a total mess. And I guess we could dedicate, maybe we do this, maybe next week we talk about Juventus and why they're in the situation they're in. Because I think, we could put a lot of hours into these subjects.
But that's it, but in the end, as I say, from just a Serie A as a league point of view, despite these teams like Milan and Juve not being at their best, it just adds to the competitiveness of the league as well, because they're not guaranteed to be up there. They're no way guaranteed. It's similar. You could put Roma in the same sort of category as them. But Roma have been on a good form at the moment, but can they keep that up against Napoli? It's going to be one of those things on Sunday evening to have a look at. I mean, if they can beat Napoli, I hope they can then consistently do that and not make it a one-off, because that's the problem, as we saw with Roma. They played well in Europe this week, but they had to make up for that loss they did the week before, which they should have won. That game they should have won, but they lost it. And so they were lucky they even got into the playoffs. They should have been already kind of secure anyway, but they weren't. But the league, as I say, I've watched all leagues. I still now and then might watch a game or so from another league. Sometimes, well, most of the time I would say not out of choice, maybe because I'm somewhere where it's on or someone else is watching it. But when I watch Serie A, as I said to you before, for me, it's the comparison of binge watching a series or films or something like that, because the majority of it is brilliant. You want to watch the next game. There are going to be games that are not as good, or you might have a letdown. For example, when we had Milan Juventus, not the first time, where they were proper 0-0 boring game. Like, you'd expect it. We all expected more from that, but these are two teams that have not really performed consistently this season. And Juve have been more drawing than anything, but in Europe they went and lost at home as well. So, I mean, they've got Empoli next, which if this was more the beginning of the season, I think I would have given Empoli more chance, but because it's further into it, I think Juve have got no excuses but to react, and they should be taking it out on Empoli. But you never know. You never know. In this league, the bottom team can beat the top team anytime. There's no guarantees in this league. As we know, it's unpredictable. So, yeah, any more about week 23? Otherwise, I'll just start going on to the next bit.
No, I think we
okay,
park
so
it there for now.
Yeah, so that's basically it. But what I'm going to do, because the transfer window for Serie A shuts on Monday midnight. So on Tuesday, I'm going to put together a list of the teams that have signed transfers in. The transfers out, I don't care about. If they've left Serie A, they're nothing to do with us anymore. It's been sad to see some players go. I will mention now one of them, Coyote, who's come to the Prem. I mean, I still don't understand why there was no Italian teams getting him, and especially I think Milan should have got him over Walker. That's my personal opinion, because not only is he young and Italian, he's very good. His potential is crazy, and I think if they even loaned him to buy him, I mean, they could already probably, because he wasn't playing too much at Fior because of Dodo, that I reckon they could have got him for quite cheap. I'm not sure what the loan, if they're doing a loan to buy here. I'm kind of don't want to see that. I hope he comes back, but I'm guessing as soon as they start seeing him, they're not going to want to get rid of him. And the money they've got here will mean that he'll end up here and probably never back in Serie A or for a long time, unless Serie A starts earning more money like it should be. So yeah, on that side of things, don't want to talk too much about players who've gone out, but I will update the list for every team that's brought in a player on Tuesday and just put that as a video. No talking, nothing, probably just a list and let it just roll through. So if anyone wants to see that, we'll have that updated then. I don't know if you want to talk about any transfers at the moment for up to today.
Yeah, I think you've covered the main ones that I was interested in there. Yeah, if the Kamada thing goes through and he goes to Monza, it's great for him. Outside of that, yeah.
I mean, what we can say is today confirmed is Maldini has gone to Atalanta, which is great, I think, because I still think Atalanta is probably the best team for any player to go to, especially at the moment. I mean, and Maldini, with the potential he had and has, to go there, I think is going to raise his level even more than it has been. And I just think from a Milan point of view, it's just terrible. They got rid of him for nothing. I know it's 50% sales. I mean, he's going to Atlanta. I think it was around 14 million, which is nothing euros. It's crazy how cheap these players are. But Atlanta get these Italian players with potential and are still good now as well, but have potential to be much better. And I don't understand where you've got a team like Milan who had Maldini, and instead they got rid of him and they bring someone in like Abraham. And then it's things like that. It just makes no sense to me. They did the same with De Ketelaere. They didn't give him a chance. Where'd he go? He goes to Atlanta, and look at him now. It just shows you how toxic Milan is at the moment, I think. And I'm glad he's gone there, and I hope he's going to raise his levels and do the same for Italy. And then Kamada, I'm also hoping that goes through, because he's not being given a chance at Milan, and I'm hoping Monza will use him as a replacement for Maldini, play him more often, and I think as soon as he gets a goal or two, that will build his confidence up, and hopefully he'll go on a good run, which will be more good news for Italy itself as well. And I want to see more stuff like that happening, but unfortunately, we still seem to see the Italian teams rather look abroad for a cheaper option, or a cheap option, should we say, rather look in their youth teams or Serie B or something like that, which I don't like that side of things. but is what it is. Other interesting type of transfers that have happened so far. Obviously, Kolo Muani went to Juve. He scored on his debut, but I mean, if you watched the game, he was struggling, especially before that goal, and then even after the goal, didn't do too much. But he's still going to be talked about like he's done great because he actually scored. But from a Juve point of view, not good to see that they keep benching Vlahovic. Motta doesn't seem to like him from what you can see. He's not really having much of a chance, and he's still their top goal scorer. I'm sure he is, but that's worrying, and I can't see any other Italian team that can afford him. And that's the thing. I think he's going to end up going whether January or summer, which is it's a shame because he's grown up through Fiorentina and all that as well, which was good to see.
Yeah, but with him as well. I mean, he's an expensive person to just have on your bench, isn't he?
Exactly, and that's the other thing I was going to say. Like, you've got to look when they look at these players, how much they're paying them. I don't want to keep bringing it back to Milan, but like, I still think they should have got Coyote over Walker. And I know I said that just not long ago, but something like that where you've got someone who they need to be looking at long term. Is Walker really a long term solution? Even if he was free and wasn't paid nothing, like, great, have him as a backup or whatever, if that was the case. But they're gonna use him as the main one. I just don't know. He's got a few seasons left in him, but really, should we be looking at, if you're looking from a Milan point of view, should we be looking at him to be there as a main person for a couple of seasons? Why? I don't get it. I think I've said before when it happened, I'm looking forward to seeing Ibrahimovic at Lazio. It was a shame when he had to go back to Bayern Munich because for some reason I don't know why any of the other teams didn't go for him, because when he was on loan in Italy, he was doing quite well, and obviously he was only like 17 but then and all that. So I'm glad he's back. There was another player that I'm glad who's back, and he's at Torino, and that's Elmas. I mean, I liked him at Napoli and that. He's very good at dribbling and stuff, and he's still only 25. Like, do you know what I mean? That's a great signing for Torino. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I mean, there's plenty of players still coming in, and I say the window, a few more days, so there's going to be rumours and confirmations all over the place. But Tuesday, I will put up every single transfer coming in into Serie A in January. So that's a list that's waiting to do. Other than that, I have now, I think, covered all those details. It's been a lot of information to take on, but hopefully we have a good weekend to watch of Serie A action, and then the Coppa Italia, and then we'll meet up next week. Unless there's anything else you want to mention before we do.
Just quickly, so when we're looking at the top goal scorers, we're seeing right now Retegui's up there, and he's back scoring goals. So I wonder if the gap between him and Thuram gets bigger.
Well, now Martinez is on form. You'd think he'd be the one going, but I mean, Thuram, you can't.
He's quite some way away. Well, isn't he? Yeah, I mean, Martinez is on 9.
Yeah.
And I think Retegui's on 16. Sorry.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a gap there, but I mean, interesting when you look at that top 10. It's got some great strikers in there.
Yeah.
I mean, most teams would want them. Like, you've got, in order, this is Retegui, Thuram, Keane, Lookman, Martinez, Lukaku, Dovbyk, Esposito, Luca, Adams, Vlahovic, Orsolini, all on the same. Castellanos, all joint.
Yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of time. When I was saying about Martinez, I was meaning more because of the form he's on. He might take those goals away from Thuram that Thuram was putting through. Do you know what I mean? When he wasn't scoring, Thuram was scoring. Now he's scoring. Is Thuram still going to score, or what? And obviously he's going to get some more goals. But I'm saying, is the Martinez form going to be taken away from Thuram in the sense of winning the actual top goal scoring? award. We'll have to see what happens, but yeah, it's always Serie A. I still think it improves every single season, and I still think it pulls away from the other leagues every season. But it's only this season that people are starting to notice it, and I'm hoping the way the values of the players are in Italy that they can start holding on to these players rather than selling them for hardly anything to other teams abroad and different leagues and stuff. But even if they do, Serie A keeps producing. They keep finding. They've got great youth systems. They've got great scouting systems, and they always churn out great players. So yes, it's sad to see some players go, but they will be replaced. And if in a lot of circumstances, people with other potential or better than them. So we'll see. But yeah, that's all from me for now. And I think that's quite a lot of information we've gone through today. Hopefully, next week will be a bit easier to go through. So yeah, all good. So speak next week.
Yes. Yeah, all good. Thanks.
All right. I'll see you later. All right.
Yep.